It's not. Press Control L. Control L. Okay. That is now on slideshow, right? Okay. Let's see. Assalamu alaikum and good morning or afternoon that is meeting. We are going to have a brief discussion on this CSC 201, that is Introduction to Software Engineering. So, let's move to the next slide. Now, we are today going to be discussing part 4 of this course, which is Introduction to UML Diagram, where specifically we are going to be looking at classes and various ways in which we can create, classes in UML and some other things related to that. Let's move to the next slide. So, in this next slide, we are talking about classes and class is just representation of objects, that have similar behavior. So group of objects in program like Java can be depicted or represented, or implemented by means of a class. And a class normally have, three basic components that we can use in describing it, which are shown here. We can see we have three compartments in this rectangle. The first is the name of the class, the second is the attributes, and then the third one is operations, that the class can perform. So this is the simplest way in which we can represent uh, a class. So let's move to the next slide. So we will now go through each of the three compartments one at a time, beginning with the first compartment, which is the class, so class name. So in this compartment, this is where we can write the name of the class, and this should be unique, and it should identify the class. And this is, the compartment that is mandatory in this diagram. The other two can be optional. So the least we can do when we are representing a class is to write the name of the class. Let's go to the next slide. And then this is the second compartment where we can write the attributes. So the attributes, describe properties, name properties that a class or an object can have. In this example, the name of the class is person. That means, this class is representing a person, a person object. And we know a person can have attributes such as this one. As a person, you can have your name, you can have your date of birth, beside these two, what else do we have in the example? Okay, your address can also be, indicated, and also your social security ID. These are properties that can help when we are describing a person. We should know the name of the person, the address of the person, the birth date of the person, and also the social security ID of the person. In our Nigerian context, we can say the name, that is, national, ID. And if you look at this very closely, you can see the way an attribute is represented is by providing two things. That is the name of the attribute and then the data type of the attribute. The data type tell us the kind of data that we can store in that attribute. For example, when we consider name, the kind of data that we can store in name should be string. That is why we have string here. For address, the kind of data we can store is a large text which we can, have in the form of, address data type and so on. Let's move to the next slide. Now, in this next slide, we can see that the attributes can be of different types. We can have, public, we can have a derived attribute and so on. So now a derived attribute means an attribute that does not stand on its own, but we can derive it, means we can get it from another attribute. And then we normally denote a derived attribute using a forward slash, as in the case of age here. Age is a derived attribute of type date, because when we know the birth date of a person, then we can compute his age. Therefore, we don't need to collect age, when we are collecting data, from the user, but instead we can collect date of birth, and then from there we we can derive the age. So age here is an example of a derived attribute. Beside derived attribute, we have other kinds of attribute, as we shall see on the next slide. Okay. Okay, on this next slide, you can see these are the other types of attribute that we can have. We can have public, we have beside public, we have protected, we have derived, and then we have private. Is it private, the last one?
Right.
Okay, right. Okay, this one.
Yes, that's private.
Okay, yeah, we have private and then we have derived. Okay, so you see, public means an attribute that can be visible to other classes. In this, our example, you can see name has the symbol of plus, which denotes a public attribute. And then this is the name of the attribute, and this is the style as mentioned earlier. You can see that address has the sign of what do we call this? Hash, yeah. Hash means this is a protected attribute. It means it is being protected from modification by other classes, and then it is deleted using hash. And you can see this is another protected, that is backed, and then this is drive. We have the forward slash, and then this has been explained earlier that you can drive it when you know another attribute. We can drive age if we know the backed. Then lastly, you can see the minus sign indicating private attribute, means this attribute, social security number, should only be visible or known locally within the class. So these are the categories of additional attributes that a class can have. And remember what we said about attributes, meaning that they are named properties that we can use in describing an object. We want to know more about the object. It is properties that we can use in describing it. Then the attributes are what will give us that. Then lastly, in the class, we have the operations. The attribute tell us the properties of the object. Then we also do have the behavior that the object can perform, the actions that the object can perform, and that is depicted in the next compartment, which is number 3, and that is operations. I'm going to take us to the slide number 3. Okay. Now, in this slide, we can see here that the same person object or person class, which has these properties, is having this as operations. Sometimes we call them methods, meaning the behavior that the class or the object can perform. We know a person can demonstrate this behavior. A person can eat, a person can sleep, a person can walk, and then a person can play. These are properties that an object can perform or demonstrate, and then we call them operations. Let's consider another example, although not on this slide. If we take a car as an object, car can move, car can reverse, car can stop. So those are operations that the car objects can perform. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide.